This is part one of a two-part episode. We didn't want you to miss any of this content due to a time constraint, so we split it into two parts. If you have the time at the end, you'll be able to pick up part two right away with the click of your mouse or the tap of a finger. Otherwise, you can easily find part two on our channel listed right after this one. Now, prepare to be empowered with some mind-blowing knowledge.
Hey there guys, so it's Gavin here from Sovereign Empowerment, and I'm joined by Dave. There's no surnames here, it's just Dave. Now, just to introduce Dave, and really what is a different concept for these videos, because you've been seeing some more instructional based videos, we're looking to bring in experts, people that are time served, been through the trenches, got the battle scars, but also have the remedies to prove it. Now Dave is a 17-year veteran of natural law, trust law, equity. He's been there, he's done it, he's got the t-shirt, and really what I wanted to do today was introduce Dave to you guys. We're going to talk through some of his experiences, the remedies that he's basically come across through these battles that he's been through, some real life stories. And then at the end, I'm going to explain how we're going to share Dave's remedies with all of you guys. So with that said, Dave, welcome. Thank you for giving me your time to talk today.
Thank you very much.
I thought just as a kind of a kickoff, really, just if you could just introduce yourself to the audience and just sort of let them know who you are and what you've been up to.
Yeah, hello, I'm Dave. I've been doing this 16, 17 years on and off. I got into accident scene investigation and laws regarding insurance companies, and that's how I got into doing some of the stuff that I did. I realized that it's not all plain sailing when it comes to law, and that there is a lot of fraud involved. So that's where I got involved. I started helping people get out of debt. Yeah, I started 16, 17 years ago. A lot has changed. I used to use the Credit Consumer Act 1974. And I know that doesn't work as well in the courts regarding contract law. So, yeah, we've had to change our paperwork. We've had to change what we're doing. But it seems to be working. They are the ones that are on the run now, not us. So people need to realize that, like you said, they are not in debt. This is all a made up fraudulent system, and we're going to beat them. We
absolutely are. And I think the easiest thing to say to folks that maybe are getting into this now, broadly, this system operates commerce, contract law, which is the at law side of things. Yeah. And then there's trust law, which is the highest law of the land, you know, God's law, if you like. So we're going to dig into all of that stuff, folks. But one of the things you were talking about before we kicked off here, Dave, was PCNs. A lot of what you're doing has been working with the PCNs. And I know a lot of the inquiries that we get are around those types of fines. So can you sort of elaborate and explain how it works, how it comes, why is it they don't really have a legal claim, and how is it we can win?
Well, first of all, 90% of the PCNs that are sort of given to people are not done through a court. So the end process, if you ignore these PCNs and what have you, and then all of a sudden you get notices of enforcement through the door, most of these are just from the councils. You know, they're just made up pieces of paper from the council saying you owe us money. So none of it is legal from the start. So
like everything else they do, right?
Like everything else, yeah. The council just make things up as they go along. So these notices of enforcement need to have certain items on them, like the original PCN number, which 99% of these don't have. So what happens is the bailiff company will put their own reference number on them, which makes it completely void from the start, and they can't do anything with them. So the general layman doesn't even know, you know, that these are not enforceable. So they need a week from serving these notices of enforcement to actually coming and sort of clamping vehicles or trying to get in your house or whatever. So there's lots of things that they can and can't do. They only have 12 months to enforce these notices of enforcements, and most of the time they're just illegal. So what I'd expect people to do now, or a good thing for people to do, is to do these DSARs, these data subject access requests, on the actual courts that these are alleged to be in. You know, they're very simple to do. Just write your name and address to the actual court, and and give them 2 pieces of evidence of your identity. And they've got to give you this information. And most of the time it comes back blank. They haven't got any information on you. So bang, you've got them. Bang, you've got them.
If somebody's in receipt of a PCN then now, let's say I got a PCN today, what would you suggest that I would do? How would I play that out?
Well, what I would do is I'd wait for the council to actually get this information from the DVLA, because once the council has got information from the DVLA, they're getting your data. You know, it's been sold to the council, so you've got them straight away on your personal data being sold. That's what I'd do, and then I'd write them a notice to say that they're fraudulent envelopes, which are, you know, if you get an envelope like this with a box in it, you know, it's fraudulent. And most of the time, they've got PO box numbers on the back. You know, they're non-landmass addresses. So right away, it's fraudulent under the 2006 Fraud Act.
Can you explain for the layman, just as a quick one, why is that letter with the box? Why is it fraudulent?
The box signifies it's in Admiralty law and maritime law, a box is closed, and anything in it is considered not admissible. So what they're doing is they're trying to hide the fraud in these boxes. So when you get these PCN notices, the whole page will just be covered in boxes with your information inside. So what they're doing is they're concealing the fraud. So straight away, if you remove the boxes off the paper, it doesn't mean anything. It's just babble. It's just rubbish. So you've got them straight away under the UPU, the Universal Postal Union laws of 1929, the Universal Convention. So people need to look into the Universal Postal Union, which is a very powerful organisation over all courts, over all governments, and they can't be messed with. What they're doing is they're putting their own fraudulent stamps on these mails. You know, what they call the franking machines. So they're not even stamped. They're not properly done under the Universal Postal Union 1929 conventions. It's all fraud. The whole thing's fraud.
You've actually used that 4-corner rule in court, haven't you?
Yes, I have used that 4-corner rule.
Do you want to share that story? Because it blew me away, actually.
Okay. I was called to court. Do you want me to do the whole story from the beginning?
Yeah, I think may as well, because it's a good story. It just kind of outlines all the corruption and.
Okay. Well, the corruption just goes on and on and on. I was called to a house because this is what I do. I help people that have bailiff issues and this, that, and the other. This one woman, an elderly woman. I'll just call her Alison for Pete's sake. It was about 3:30. We got a phone call to say that a bailiff was in her living room for the last 2 hours, trying to get over £900 out of her to do with council tax. Now, I'd worked with this woman previously, and I knew that there was no such thing as the liability order for council tax for this particular woman. We'd called the courts up and we caught them at it. So I went straight down to her house knowing that there was no liability order and that this bloke who was called a bailiff wasn't there legally or lawfully. So as I walked into the room, he gets on his phone straight away, calling the police, saying, I'm being assaulted. I didn't go up to him or anything. So what I did is I pulled up my ID card and I walked over to him, and I said who I was, and I asked for his ID. He refused. I turned to the people in the room. There was 4 people in the room at the time, and I said, has he given any ID or been asked to leave? And all of them said, yeah, we've asked him for his ID. He's refused. He's refused to give us any warrant, any kind of liability order, any kind of paperwork, and he's trespassing. He shouldn't be here. We've told him to leave. So with that, cut a long story short, he's picking his iPad off the floor and he's picking his camera off the floor, and I've thrown him out the door. Police are called. Within 3 minutes, we've got 3 police officers, 1 outside with him and 2 inside with the 4 people that were inside with me, all witnesses to what just happened. So the police officers just, they took all our statements, more or less, very, very, very small statements, asking who we were, where we lived, and this, that, and the other. They actually let this fella back into the house because they'd been sat in or stood in the hallway, gabbling amongst themselves. They let this fella back in the house to do his duty. And I questioned him over it. I said, hey, he's been thrown out once. He's causing a breach of the peace. So they've said he's got a legitimate warrant on his iPad, which I said, that's not legitimate. It's not done through any court. And they said, yes, it is. We've seen it and it's legitimate. So we're letting him in the house to carry on his job. So he can, write down all these lists of things and take what he wants. So immediately, I said to Alison, where's your trust paperwork? So I'd done a trust with Alison maybe a year before this date, and I put everything into trust for her. So her house, her car, all the items listed inside the house were put into this trust. So we showed the trust document to one of the female PCs, who then said, this is not a legally binding document. And I just laughed. I said, what? And she says, shut up and don't talk to me about the law. He's continuing to do what he's going to do. He's going to take whatever he needs to do. So they discussed amongst themselves how long the van was going to take for this stuff to be taken. So I'm saying you can't divulge information with a bailiff. This is a civil matter. And she said, it's not a civil matter. This is criminal. And I said, how's it criminal? And she said, because he's alleged you've assaulted him. So I said, right, fine, okay, no problem. So anyway, to cut a long story short, they couldn't get a van. They were talking amongst themselves where to get a van. Now, this is the police and the bailiff. So right away, they're talking with bailiffs about how to get a van to remove this lady's stuff, which is not allowed. They're not allowed to do that. It's in their own police handbook. So he's left in a hurry about 5:30 saying, I can't get a van. It was just easier for her to just get someone to give me the £900 plus, and it all would have been avoided. So he's ran out the door, got in his car and drove off. The police are even stumped. They're sort of scratching their heads. So with the threat gone, I've said to this lady, we're going to go now. We told the police, we said, right, you've got all our details, we're going to leave. So we leave, and it was about 4 weeks later, I get an email from the police saying, can you come in for an interview? Because, they've claimed assault, criminal assault, and you're going to be done for it. If you have any evidence to the contrary, I suggest you bring it in now. So I've refused to go in under duress. I said, no, no, absolutely not. And I've put in my own statement, and I've put in an affidavit about the truth of what happened on that day. We all wrote affidavits and we all wrote statements the day after. So we got 4 witness statements to see what happened. It was about, I say, 2 weeks after that, they asked us to change our witness statements, the police. So the police have sent me an email and sent one of the other ladies an email who was with us, asking could they change it to headed police paper. And I said, no, straight away, absolutely not, because an affidavit should not be messed with. This is your headed paper, your signature, your thumbprints, and your facts, first-hand facts of what happened that day. And they wanted to take out whole sentences in this, that, and the other. And I said, no, that's fraud. You're not allowed to do that. No, not at all. So the ladies agreed, they were going to leave everything the way it is. So anyway, I get a court summons to a magistrate's court for criminal assault and a few other things, stopping a bailiff in his duty and stopping an enforcement agent doing his thing under certain regulations. So I went into impact mode and got all my court documents ready. Anyway, we went down the route of that the councils and all governments are liable now for terrorism charges because of what they're doing with the 5G towers, because of what they're doing with the street lighting. It's all illegal. They shouldn't be doing it. The LED street lighting has a dramatic effect on the human body biologically, and it's been found to reduce the life expectancy of the average human by 6 years. So that, in my eyes, is terrorism. They should not be doing it. Any maiming or anything of any human, I call them humans. We should be calling ourselves men and women, because a human means different things. Anyway, that's the route I went down. So I was gathering evidence of the fraud. I was gathering evidence of the terrorism charges. I did a conditional acceptance, put in my own fees, and this, that, and the other. So it was when I watched your show about a week before, to 8 days it was before my court appearance, you did a show called Council Tax Scams. And on that, it said about the DSARs, the data subject access requests. And I thought, that's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I'm going to do a DSAR on the place where this lady allegedly got her liability order from the council tax. And then he's classed as he's a trespasser, and an aggravated trespasser at that, because he refused to leave. So we've done it on the lady's behalf. We've got a DSAR notice from the magistrates involved, and it came back absolutely no data is held at this court for this lady's name. So I thought, yes, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So I've gone into court the day before to hand in all my paperwork. Now, on the bundle I sent you, there's photos as well of all this paperwork. Now, there's over 3,300 pages of evidence that I've got against the councils and the governments. So I've gone in with a huge box of paperwork. I mean, this box was massive. I had to carry it right across the car park, and the security guards came out from the behind the desk. Now, I've got my Live Life Claim badge on me, so straight away they were put on notice straight away that I was a living man. So they said, stop right there, you're not coming in the court. I said, why not? And they said, because you've got to leave your box there, you're not coming in. So I said, I just want to put this bit of paperwork behind the desk. I just want to get it stamped for my court appearance on the Monday. This was the Friday afternoon. So they said, you could leave your box there by the door. You can go in and see the clerk of the court, but you're not bringing your paperwork in. So I thought, right, okay. So I thought, I'll go through the scanners, go over to the clerk and give my name and tell them that I want to put in this paperwork for court. She completely refused. She says, this is the first time in 20 years I've ever seen this. You're not bringing that paperwork into this court as a defendant. She called me a defendant. She says, I've never seen this, and we don't do this. You need an appointment to see the clerk of the court. But I said, you're the clerk of the court. And she says, yes, but you need an appointment to see me. So she says, there's my email address. Go home and email me for an appointment. So I said, my court appearance is on Monday. I need to get this information in. She says, you need an appointment. So I said, right, okay, no problem. So I've grabbed the box from the door, and I've got in the car, drove home 45 minutes to get home from the court. And I've emailed her and said, I want an appointment. Sorry, we don't do appointments. Straight away, within 5 seconds, don't do appointments.
It's just obstruction, isn't it? All everywhere you go. Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. They did not want me in that court whatsoever with the evidence that I had. Just did not want me in the court. So anyway, I thought, right, two can play at that game. And I said to her on the email, I said, look, I've just been into your court. You've seen me walk in the door with all this paperwork. I said, I wanted it stamped. I said, there's no way I'm sitting there emailing you 3,000 plus documents, for court on Monday. There's no way I'm doing it. So I thought, I'll do a little preamp, my little rant before court. So I named all the little bits and pieces that they'd done wrong regarding fraud, regarding their own council tax manuals and this, that, and the other. There's no liability orders through the council tax since 2003, which contradicts the 1888 Government Act, where councils are not allowed to pretend to be courts. They're not allowed to write summons. They're not allowed to write liability orders. So we had them on so many things. And I just sent the DSAR notice at the end with the email. And I put on the original court summons. There was original court summons that I had from this lady. And I just wrote in big, massive letters, fraud and perjury, wrote across it, and emailed the lot to the court. Anyway, didn't hear a thing on the Monday. So I thought, I'll go down to the court. I'm in at 12 o'clock. And there's a bloke sat in the waiting room when I get into court. I brought 4 people with me. That's another thing. They told me by letter that because of the coronavirus that I wasn't allowed to bring in witnesses. I wasn't allowed to bring in anybody involved in the case, and they blamed coronavirus. So I thought, right away, this is just absolute crap. So I brought 4 witnesses anyway, And these guys are all from different places, very high up in the pecking order. And I thought, if anything goes wrong, these guys will have my back. So I told them before we went in, I said, I'm not sitting down in front of any judge. I'm not standing up in front of any judge. I'm going to do completely the opposite of what they say. Don't sit down. So all four of us have walked into this court. And first of all, they called my name. And they called my name again. And straight away I said, : David, : Salem, full stop, fact in law. And she said, can you step inside the box for me, the witness box? And she pointed to this big glass unit. And I looked at the box and I said, there is no way I am getting into your box. And she said, why not? This is the clerk of the court that stood up and said this. There was 3 judges in the court and the clerk of the court. And the clerk stood up, not the 3 judges. And she said, why don't you want to get into the box? And I said, because I don't understand your authority. Straight away. So she said, just sit inside the box then. And I said, no, what don't you get, the N or the O? The N or the O. I don't want to sit inside your box. You have no authority. Straight away, she said, court dismissed, court discontinued. Straight away. Now, as I turned to my 4 witnesses behind me, one guy was in the middle of sitting down. He was sort of hovering over the seat as if to sit down. So the whole court case took about 30 seconds, if that. And this poor guy was in the middle of standing up and sitting down. So he's, oh, is that it? Is that it? So they all sort of left, sort of baffled, didn't know what the hell was going on. And they said, why didn't you get inside the box? And I said, it's the old 4 corners rule. You sit inside a box, you're not considered. It's maritime law. You're in a maritime court, in a dry dock, in dry vessel. That's what they do. I said, they're trying to get you in a box so they can conceal the fraud. And I said, that's what they've obviously tried to do. They tried to sweep the fraud under the carpet to deal with me, and they couldn't deal with me. So that's my little story about the courts.
Be sure to catch part 2 of this episode, where Gavin and Dave dive deeper into the subjects of natural law, trust law, and equity, and how you can protect yourself from the fraud, collusion, and outright manipulation you're being controlled by. Just click the video link in the upper right-hand corner, and we'll see you there.